Om Sahana Vavatu Sahano Punaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahe Tejasvinavadidamastu Ma Vitvishavahe. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om. Have you ever heard something clearly inside of yourself and then ignored it? Maybe you've ignored it for a few days or a few months or maybe for a few years, not because you didn't hear it, but because acting on it would require change or maybe courage or trust. Today, I want to talk about inner guidance and the quiet messages we receive long before we're ready to act on them. Because I think many people are actually far more intuitive than they realize. So the issue is not always hearing, the issue is trusting and following through. Namaste and welcome to the Spiritual Wealth Podcast. I'm your host, Alexandra Savithri, director of the American Reiki Academy and the Vedic Healing Center. I'm a Reiki master, Vedic Healing master, and priestess, spiritual guide who has practiced and taught spiritual self-development and healing for more than 35 years, led pilgrimages to India, and studied with blessed Indian gurus. In this show, we cover topics related to metaphysics, Reiki, Vedic healing, manifestation, spiritual growth, and feng shui based upon my studies and work in these disciplines. The aim of this show is to help you awaken, develop, and tap into your spiritual power in order that you may live well, manifest your dreams, and ultimately fulfill your unique divine destiny. So welcome to today's episode, which is about your intuition and intuitive messages. Sometimes people make this out to be very complex, and I'd like to talk about and kind of demystify this inner guidance and these quiet messages that we are receiving actually all the time, and then either discounting or just definitely not acting upon, maybe ignoring, discounting, or not even acknowledging them. So as you know, when I record these podcast episodes, they're always intuitively guided. And what I mean by that is I hear the episodes before I sit down to record them. I start to hear them and I write down what I'm hearing. It reminds me of, I believe it was Michelangelo who said, and it's a very famous quotation. I remember it from when I studied art history, actually a long time ago, but you may have heard it. You don't have to have studied art history. And Michelangelo said, "I saw the angel in the marble and carved until I set him free." So the reason I'm thinking of this suddenly, and this wasn't actually even in my notes today, is because it relates to this intuitive voice, these intuitive hits, these intuitive messages that we get all the time. So these messages come in different ways. They come through hearing, through seeing, through sensing, through feeling. And each person usually has one of those senses more dominant. So when I say I hear messages, I really do hear them. the clairaudience is very dominant for me. Clairaudience. So we have clairsentience, we have clairvoyance, these are extrasensory perceptions. And so when I sat down to do this episode, it was because I had heard the episode already. And the episode was basically about not following what we hear, what we intuit, what we sense, what we feel. And as an example, a few months ago, I heard something very clearly inside myself. It wasn't loud, it wasn't dramatic, it was subtle, but unmistakable. And interestingly enough, it is still sitting on my desk undone. So I kept looking at it and thinking about it and feeling like, okay, I'll get to that soon. I know I need to do that. And by the way, this thing that I want to do doesn't have any kind of logical pull. It's not it wasn't these, because these messages don't really come from the intellect, from the mental body. They're going to come from your intuitive sense, which is feminine energy. So I know now always to follow this. And in fact, a few years ago, I think in one of my seminars, I remember saying out loud, what if in your life you really made a commitment to following this guidance? And I declared, this is what I'm now doing. I don't know what, pushed me to say that, but I made a declaration out loud. So now I do act from this guidance. Sometimes, like the thing that's sitting on my desk to do, I don't act immediately, but I know there's some reason spirit or source energy or my higher self whispered to me. And lately, what's really interesting is more and more clues have actually been unfolding around why I heard that message in the first place. So this is how your intuition communicates with you, and life will keep kind of tapping you on the shoulder and reminding you that you've already known you need to move forward on something. So let this be the week that I actually finish what this project that I was guided to do. So we receive intuitive nudges all the time. And again, I started this episode by saying I wanted to demystify the intuitive voice, listening to your intuition, receiving intuitive messages. So they come in different ways. They can be feelings, ideas, knowing, seeing. And again, it relates to extrasensory perceptions. We talk about this in our Reiki classes. It's kind of like a little inkling, a little whisper that won't leave you. And the message repeats itself over and over again until you listen. So many people dismiss these moments because the moments don't occur in a dramatic way, but inner guidance is often subtle. And I would say we have never been trained in school, certainly, to listen to this guidance. And in fact, we may have been trained to ignore it, to override subtle messages, because we are trained to analyze everything, explain everything, rationalize everything. This is the mental body. And although the mental body is so amazing and important for us, your intuition speaks differently. It feels like peace. It feels like persistence, but in a very gentle way until we finally pay attention to it. And when I teach people in Reiki level 2 about channeling, the channeling comes through that way until you start to trust it. And then it's like the floodgates open up. So sometimes the messages make absolutely no sense at first, but later the clues begin appearing. And that's what has happened to me recently with this thing that I got nudged to do. And then the path around it also begins to reveal itself. And, suddenly you realize, oh, that's why I heard that. And I think many people, again, sweep their deeper knowing, this intuitive voice, under the rug because acting on it might disrupt their comfort zone, or because, and this is interesting, maybe because they don't know why they're being guided in such a way. So they want all the answers. But inner guidance asks us to grow, to trust, to change, and to act in alignment with these messages, even when we can't figure out why they're coming through. So this can feel very interesting, very vulnerable, especially if you've spent years doubting yourself, doubting your internal messages, your internal compass. And this is why, again, spiritual practice matters so much. And this can be Reiki, meditation, prayer, chanting, your yoga asanas, stillness, spending time in silence, spending time alone. These practices help us become quiet enough to hear our inner guidance clearly, because the deeper voice inside of us is rarely, I won't say never, but rarely screaming. Again, it's usually a whispering. And the more distracted we become, the more completely grounded in this material world we become, the harder it is to recognize that voice. And another interesting nuance is that not every intuitive message needs immediate action. So you're always discerning, and the timing matters. We are often gathering understanding, and it's like our soul is preparing us gradually. It's giving us hints. So there's a difference between, I would say, divine timing and avoidance. So this is something else to bear in mind. The messages are coming, and sometimes we are to act upon them immediately, and sometimes we are just to note, okay, I received this message, and let me act upon it in accordance with divine timing when I feel it is right. So deep down inside, you will know the difference. You will know exactly what you need to do at what time. And again, when I made that declaration in the seminar, I think it's because I notice that people become afraid of being the person who acts upon their intuitive messages. Maybe because you feel like your friends would think you were weird, or, you get a message that's kind of out there and you haven't made rhyme or reason of it yet. And so if you voice it to someone else, they'll say, "What are you, crazy? That sounds strange." But here's the challenge, can you be brave enough to actually act upon your intuitive hits? What have you heard inside yourself lately that you are not acting upon? What is I always say tapping you on the shoulder, because I feel like these messages are sometimes like that. They're whispers in your ear, or like someone tapping you on the shoulder. And there might be an idea, a change, a calling that keeps sitting kind of at the edge of your life, and it's asking for you to acknowledge it. And when the message arrives, say to yourself, maybe now it's time for me to listen. It's time for me to listen. And here's the challenge for all of us, start giving equal value to your intuitive voice. Equal as in you have your mental body and your intellectual self, and then you have this emotional, intuitive side of you. So you've got the yin and the yang, the male and the female. What if you start giving incredible weight to this feminine side and allowing yourself to, to believe in and honor these messages, that this is you honoring the divine feminine energy that is going to animate everything. It's going to spark all of your output in life, all of your adventures, all of your actions that you take. So this is the challenge. This is the challenge, to listen to the messages and for once say, I heard these messages, I noted them, and I actually acted upon them. And I'll bet that if you're not acting upon them, there's some fear there. So that's where healing occurs, just understanding there's a disconnect there. What if I walked through that? What if I moved through whatever that is, that friction or fear, or sometimes you don't know what it is, that block that I have, and just acted upon the messages from Spirit, the messages I have received, the downloads I have intuited, the whispers from Source energy. What would my life be like? This is your challenge. This is your reminder. This is just a message, perhaps from Spirit for you today, to try one day living in a great honoring of this voice. Can you do this for one day? Can you go about one day tomorrow taking note of the messages that are coming to you and jotting them down and then acting on them, either immediately or when you feel guided to, but actually starting to open up the dialogue between you and your intuitive voice. and see what happens, see what magic unfolds in your life. Om Hasatoma Sadgamaya Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya Mrityorma Amritam Gamaya. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om. Om Sai Ram. Jai Guruji. Om Amriteshwaye Namaha. Hare Krishna. Om Namah Shivaya.